All right, how's it going, everybody? CVH here, and we are going to do a little post-match commentary and analysis video for the final match in our IDC31 tournament run, the bronze match for third place against Darksigner, who we played against earlier in the tournament in the top 8 group stage, who beat us 2-0 at the time with the Ice Sword deck, Light Water Dark Nature with a bunch of shield triggers. So it's been, again, a couple weeks since the tournament, and we're just doing an analysis video afterwards. I actually, for a little bit of fun behind the scenes, I just got done playing round 2 for IDC32, so yeah, those videos are coming up too, but probably early next month, as we did for IDC31. So jumping right into the match, as we watch this recording back, I lost the die roll, but my hand is looking quite good. If I remember correctly, this is actually a much stronger hand than I got in the top 8 group stage. And as I mentioned in the last match, where we lost in top 4 to Spalding, the bronze match does in fact matter, because winning third place instead of fourth gets you 1 additional IDC point to qualify for the CIDC. So I was hoping to take a win here, and starting off with a Ganta on turn 2 is a good way to start doing that. Colon goes down, and oh yeah, Darksigner accidentally put a card in shields there. It was the bronze arm that he meant to play to the board. Very funny. I think at this point, I wind up putting Volcano Charger down and just going for bronze arm with the hopes that Earth Stomp Giant can come down on the following turn. I think there is some logic, maybe some merit to just another Ganta, but I think this is strictly better almost all the time than Ganta swinging in, and I'm hoping to dodge one of the multitude of shield triggers in Darksigner's deck. The shield trigger soul swap into Sky Sword is a little problematic for sure. And we see an early Fighter Dual Fang for Darksigner, which is going to deal with Ganta and really just serve to control the board quite well here. And all of a sudden, my hand is not looking that good. You know, even Earth Stomp Giant isn't super imposing when my opponent already has an 8,000 power creature ready to trade if need be. So at best, it's going to be able to break my opponent's shields a little bit and basically bounce the majority of my mana for virtually no gain. You know, the ramp into Shield Trigger Sky Sword into Fighter Dual Fang was really an impressive defensive few turns there for Darksigner. And it's going to be tough to overcome without some bounce, which I currently don't have in hand. But if my opponent has a weak turn and I top deck a Kirill or a Spiral Gate, we potentially have a game here. Or even a Soul Swap of my own really would do the trick. I do wind up drawing Spiral Gate. That's kind of perfect because it allows me to play Ganta with it. Looks like Jagalzor might just not be the move this game, because we're not going to have a bunch of mana after Earth Stomp attacks. But you got to do what you got to do. Okay, so I only went for Ganta here. Oh yeah, I did some quick math and I realized that if he just doesn't brick on mana, he can Sky Sword into Fighter Dual Fang again next turn. So I break 2 shields, give him 2 cards, and as long as he can play mana, he just replays everything and trades with Earth Stomp Giant. So I guess my plan here is to hope he doesn't have a good play for multiple turns, and then build up enough board where I can Spiral Gate the Fighter Dual Fang and it actually makes sense and potentially lets me 2-turn him. Of course, the problem with this is Miraculous Plague, and that is exactly what Darksigner does, and it just puts me super far behind. Yeah, some mana gets bounced, and now Darksigner's in a good enough position where he actually feels comfortable breaking shields. I would have understood not doing so, but really, there's pretty much no downside to it. It presents a 2-turn, but even if I hit a shield trigger, I'm still so far away from pressuring anything on his side of the board. I can't even trade with Bronze Arm Tribe into anything, and with 4 mana this turn, I'm not going to be able to play any real threats this turn. So I do this sort of Hail Mary Bronze Arm into Spiral Gate. I figure I'm so far behind, I need to just hit my mana well and, you know, not only ramp but also Spiral Gate to survive, potentially, if my opponent just bricks on mana. I wind up missing with the Ganta as a multi-civ, but Really, unlike a previous game where this happened, we're so far behind this time that it really doesn't make a ton of difference. It might just potentially delay lethal 1 turn if I hit and everything goes right. But obviously we see the Lost Soul come down, which is something Darksigner was probably setting up for the whole time. And yeah, despite me getting an Aqua Surfer here, which is kind of lucky and saves me a turn, it's still looking like a 0% chance to actually come back and win this game. I draw another Surfer, which does clear Darksigner's board, but again, he can just replay the Fighter Duel Fang, so this would be just for show. Break some shields, just for fun. And hit Locomotiver, which is lethal, but so is the Fighter Duel Fang in hand. So yeah, a pretty quick game 1, and Darksigner is looking poised to have a repeat performance of earlier in the top 8 where we got 2-0'd. Backs against the wall here for that IDC point for 3rd place. This time we are on the play. It's looking like we might miss our 2-drop. I think there is... so this is an interesting mana choice that I don't think I thought as long about as maybe I should. There's no water 2-drop in the deck, so obviously Quixotic is a draw, but putting Volcano Charger down first would have allowed me potentially to play Ganta on turn 2 into Hulkus on turn 3, and I think that's probably right. I think I probably should have put Volcano Charger down. Even still, I think the reason why Snap didn't do it is because in my head I didn't want to have to put Bronze Arm Tribe down turn 2, but in order to play any of my 2-drops, if Bronze Arm is my only nature mana, I would have been forced to. So that's a little bit sad. I don't wind up drawing Quixotic until turn 3 though, which means I can in fact play Bronze Arm Tribe. So yeah, I mean the mana decision turn 1 seems like it was probably a strict mistake given the rest of the hand, so I don't know what that was really about. It's a couple weeks since the match happened. Maybe it was a bit of tilt, you know, I hate to admit it, but I might have just not been, you know, super jazzed about the situation since it looked like I was going to miss my 2-drop and I had just come off of a 2-0 loss to Spalding and lost game 1, so tilt can happen. It wasn't so much of being overly upset as just thinking too quickly, because turn 2 seemed like a lost cause in my head at the time. And I have used this excuse multiple times throughout the tournament, but now we are on our final match of the IDC31 run, and the top 8 started at 6 a.m. for me, so at this point it's nearing 10 a.m., but I am on my 4th hour of Duel Masters after about 5 hours max of sleep, so we're running on fumes and caffeine. Kalan comes down and gives Darksigner a favorable. All in all, things are looking kind of okay here. Kirill is not bad. If we want to just brick Darksigner's draw, bounce the Kalan, we have a favorable with Ganta over Hulkus, and our own Hulkus can start breaking shields. That seems like a perfectly fine move to me. And it's what I wound up going for, it looks like. And no shield trigger is definitely good to see there. And now it's Darksigner that's really far behind. And his deck, like ours, really doesn't have a whole lot of mass removal. You know, we have the Searing Waves, he's got the Plagues, both cards have their limitations. Mine doesn't deal with big things, his doesn't deal with more than 2, and is very expensive. This is looking like I'm gonna have to play double creature this turn. I sort of debate whether or not I need to play Bronze Arm Tribe to the board. I don't remember what I wind up deciding. Looks like I go for it. I play Pig into Bronze Arm, which means I don't have Essence Elf on board, but I have 1 more mana overall, which winds up putting a card that I would have liked to see down. But I think the logic is if my opponent starts playing Miraculous Plagues later, I'll want to have gotten the extra actual mana as opposed to the theoretical mana that Essence Elf provides. Unfortunately, Holy Awe prevents me from breaking a bunch of shields this turn, and is going to let Aqua Hulkas take a favorable trade where otherwise it would have just had to trade evenly. But I'm still feeling pretty good about this. We're still way ahead on board, and my opponent is still, fortunately, 1 turn away from playing a Miraculous Plague. Darksigner put Soul Swap down, played Bronze Arm Tribe, and played another Bronze Arm Tribe, maybe? It was a Soul Swap. Soul Swap for Sky Sword. So yeah, Darksigner is back having tons of mana. Does indeed take the favorable on Bronze Arm Tribe. Quixotic is huge now. So I am able to break all the shields if I want. Spiral Gate can bounce Sky Sword, which is usually not amazing to do, but does prevent a trade. And either way, you know, if it trades, it'll prevent me from a one attack next turn. Getting a shield would also do the same. Getting a shield would give him another chance at a shield trigger, but it also costs 5 mana. So there are pros and cons there with the Spiral Gate. I wind up going for Gate on Hulkus, which I like more. Is less of a sort of a clean clear of the board, because I could just trade over the Hulkus with Ganta if I had wanted, but it allows me to break all the shields, and bouncing Hulkus essentially bounces a useless card. So I break another shield this way, but this is the better aggressive line that's going to basically force Darksigner to have a shield trigger if he wants to survive after next turn, and he does in fact have the Aqua Surfer, which is quite good, especially if he can follow it up with a Plague. Darksigner does have the Plague this turn, so it's looking like a full clear. Could have taken a strict favorable over Kirill there, or sorry, over Quixotic there, but I guess he decided he doesn't want to give me the chance to get Kirill back to my hand, which I guess I understand too. Bounces my nature mana. So the way this was played, and with what has happened in the previous couple turns, Darksigner knows that I can just play Quixotic and mana and go Hulkus into Ganta this turn, which is looking like the only reasonable thing to do here. Bronze Arm Tribe also not bad, but push comes to shove, Ganta can't be traded into. So if Darksigner has a Colon, which I think, do we know that he has a Colon because of earlier in the game? We might. I think that's what Kirill bounced in the first place. So yeah, with that in mind, we don't want to give Sky Sword a favorable trade. Darksigner goes up to 10 mana. The second Plague stings more than the first, that's for sure. Take the Hulkus back, and I'd take the 2-drop back. I know I have the Spiral Gate in my hand if I want to play Hulkus, which I think I probably do. Darksigner doesn't break here. A shield trigger plus a speed attacker would be a problem for him. Knowing our list, we only have the one Hyper Sprint Warrior that could work for next turn because the deck only plays one Pyrofighter, and we don't have the mana for the other Jigalzor. So I wind up playing Nature Mana, and I go for Bronze Arm with the hope that I can also play Hulkus. I wonder if there was a way I could have done that better last turn with my decisions. Okay, Lost Soul. Not bad. The most annoying thing about that Lost Soul is that it actually just keeps me off of water mana for now. So I think because of that, and because we knew about the Colon, so I think maybe playing Bronze Arm Tribe there was potentially a mistake, but Bronze Arm was probably right because it can potentially allow me to play two things last turn, and that would have at least forced the Colon, so he couldn't play like Bloom or something to set up a more consistent lethal. It's tricky. This is definitely a game that seems to be getting away from me in retrospect. Was thinking about attacking. Kind of a little risky here, but looks like just setting up a 2-turn. Because Colon can just be traded into, as could anything. My Ganta is huge. It looks like the 2-turn is coming with a Fighter Dual Fang. That is the only pseudo speed attacker that Darksigner's deck would have access to. It's looking like I need another shield trigger, but drawing Searing Wave is pretty solid. If I wind up surviving this turn, I'll have a way to full clear. or almost full clear, and also just maybe win the game. Definitely was kind of an interesting attack last turn on Darksigner's part. It is the Fighter Dual Fang, as more or less expected. Okay, and he goes for a bounce. And is it just a bounce for show, or is he actually taking the safe play? He's taking the safer play and trading. But this actually works out really well for us, especially if he doesn't break any more shields, because we already have Searing Wave plus a creature. So now I debate whether or not I have to put Lucky Ball down. Whiffing on the mana to play Searing Wave would just completely be game losing. Looking back at this, I think what I hope I do is that I hope I put Lucky Ball down, because it's the only way I can consistently play a creature that can attack next turn, as well as the Searing Wave. I would have hit it, so there's that. I could have kept the Lucky Ball in hand, which would have been nice. But this definitely gets there. I passed the turn, could have broken there, but I decided to just keep him off of cards and go for lethal the following turn. He does still have 2 in hand, though, so it's not like there aren't outs. You know, Plague is obviously still quite good. Any tap effects would still be good. Another Sky Sword would be good. Emerald to put down a shield trigger would be good, but it doesn't look like he's using the effects. And with the double break to try to set up a lethal of his own, he does wind up giving me Jigalzor, and then I draw yet another speed attacker. Unfortunately, with the Ganta, I can't play Jigalzor and use Assaul, but it doesn't really matter here because outside of Holy Awe, we should just be fine. And yeah, it doesn't actually matter again because breaking the shield would allow Jigalzor's effect to give speed attacker to Ganta as well. So it really is just Holy Awe that needed to happen there for Darksigner. And it's not Holy Awe, and we wind up taking game 2 and going to game 3 to decide if we get that 3rd place IDC point. The game 3 hand is looking like it was pretty good. We're on the draw, but we have a 2, and we have a Bronze Arm Tribe, and I feel like I've said that series of words a lot throughout the tournament. I feel like more often than not, we've had a good turn 2 and turn 3 progression. The decision here is whether to play Elf down or one of the Gantas down. And playing one of the Gantas down would just mean we get to keep Searing Wave in hand if we don't draw another fire card. I draw a 3rd Ganta. So one of the Gantas could have probably went down. But on the bright side, we are now in a position where we can play 3 Gantas. And that's a lot of Gantas. It's a lot of cards that are kind of hard to deal with for Darksigner's deck, which is notoriously not going to be amazing at dealing with multiple large creatures at the same time before Miraculous Plague mana. I can't really remember what I decided here. It was Stained Glass into mana, and then another Ganta on board. And again, if I draw another nature mana, it does open up Bronze Arm into Ganta, but I already have the ability to go Ganta Spiral Gate if I want. If there's something on board that could be Spiral Gated. If Bronze Arm Tribe was alone and there weren't 2 of them now, it might make sense to actually Spiral Gate one just so Shield Trigger, Soul Swap, or Fighter Dual Fang from hand the following turn wouldn't be as good. Speaking of, looks like Darksigner just soul swapped the 2nd Bronze Arm for the for the Sky Sword right away. And look at that, we drew all 4 Gantas in the top. How many cards is that? 14? 5 are in shield, so like the top 9 cards that we saw 4 Gantas out of 9. Very interesting. Very interesting. Spiral Gate goes down. Nothing on Darksigner's board can really trade effectively. And I did shoot my shot there for the Bronze Arm into Ganta, which is an interesting decision. It obviously did not work out, and a 3rd Ganta would have been better on this board. It was low odds, really, because I needed to hit exactly an untapped nature mana there. At this point, I'm a little concerned because it's looking like Miraculous Plague could come down and ruin my day. Darksigner is simply looking like he's stalled with more Sky Swords. The Colon, fortunately, was used to just save a shield there, so at least for the time being, Darksigner doesn't have any good trades on board. and goes for an attack. So now I'm worried about, do I have to play defensively? Are we about to see a Fighter Dual Fang come down? This is definitely kind of a risky line from Darksigner, but it forces me to play defensively, which my deck usually isn't very good at, except with that card. Searing Wave does change things considerably. It'd be interesting to see how this would have gone this turn if Darksigner hadn't broken that third shield. But if you're going to start breaking on his side, I guess it does make sense to go for all three. It's looking like a pretty clean Searing Wave, though. We're not out of the woods yet. We know Darksigner's deck has so many shield trigger creatures that attacking on my side is still pretty scary. So I wind up just passing here. Darksigner was down to 1 card in hand, drawing up to 2. If we assume that one of those cards might have been Fighter Dual Fang, which we don't really know for sure, but isn't super unlikely, then we can safely assume that passing here is going to leave him with only 1 creature on the following turn, and then I can just deal with whatever he plays with the Rebirth. So that is looking like exactly what I go for. One of the things to consider is the 4-drops in the deck maybe aren't necessarily the best here. Usasol is okay. Unicorn Fish wouldn't have anything else to bounce, and Lucky Ball would be better if I could get my opponent down to 3 shields. So I wind up just going for Volcano Charger into a Ganta, which leaves me with a stronger board than if I just rebirthed that, and also an additional mana. And again, because we saw only 1 creature on the previous turn, we can again safely assume that at most Darksigner will be able to play only 1 creature this turn, which Rebirth could deal with, so I pass yet again, trying to make it as safe as possible when I eventually do start trying to break shields for a 2 or maybe even 1 turn lethal. And this turn is looking like it's just going to be Earth Stomp and a 2. Ganta comes down, and I think it's a 1 more turn of a pass before we rebirth whatever Darksigner plays next turn, probably, and try to go for lethal. Locomotiver is the assumed top deck there. Fortunately, doesn't get rid of Rebirth. And now we probably rebirth the 4-drop and try to find the Hyper Sprint Warrior Usasol. Miraculous Rebirth is going to give us a bunch of redundancy here and require Darksigner to have 2 shield triggers or a Holy Awe. I don't know why I'm really thinking about this turn so much afterwards, because if I don't go for Rebirth, I am just playing Aqua Surfer on Locomotiver, and I don't know if in my tired state I didn't realize that doing that and him replaying Locomotiver would allow him to just discard Rebirth before I get a chance to use it, or what, but I think it's pretty clearly Rebirth here. And we hope Hyper Sprint Warrior isn't that last shield. It's not. It makes a lot more sense than a vanilla Unicorn Fish or Lucky Ball. And I think going in here makes the most sense. I think we go for it. We don't give Darksigner another chance to draw Miraculous Plagues. That could slow us down considerably. And we just start breaking and hopefully don't see too many shield triggers, especially of the shield trigger creature variety. Locomotiver, a little scary. We're already committed to going in, though. Even Holy Awe here wouldn't be lethal for Darksigner unless he also has Bronze Arm Tribe plus Fighter Dual Fang. So we are still just attacking. And those 2 shields weren't both shield triggers, and this last shield needs to be Holy Awe, and it wasn't, and we wind up taking the game. So we do, in fact, win the bronze match 2-1 to get 3rd place in IDC31. So yeah, GG's to Darksigner, and GG's to everyone we played against throughout IDC31, which, as mentioned, was my first ever IDC tournament, my first Duel Masters tournament in many, many years, my first card game tournament in general in quite a few years, and it was just a ton of fun. It was great to be a part of. I had a great time playing against everyone, a lot of fun matchups, a lot of interesting games, a lot of good decision making, and I really did wind up enjoying the deck I chose to bring. It was a really interesting version of Water, Fire, Nature. Hopefully, maybe you all could take some inspiration from it. I took a lot of inspiration from X-Boom and other lists I had seen online, and I enjoyed playing some really funky card choices and seeing how they performed. So yeah, just a great tournament overall, and you can in fact expect some matches from IDC32, which I've already entered and already played round 2 in. I'm not going to spoil too much about it, but I am in fact playing a different deck in IDC32, a different style of deck entirely. I wanted to mix it up and play something different. There's a lot of decks that I wanted to play in a more competitive Duel Masters setting. I'll leave you all guessing for now. And you can expect the IDC32 tournament run to begin on this channel in early September. Thanks for watching, everybody.